All right, so are you ready to really dive deep into Rich Dad's Guide to Investing?
We're talking rewiring your brain to think like the 10% who control 90% of the wealth.
Not just like scraping by, right?
Yeah,
Like really building wealth.
exactly. And you're in for a treat.
This is a good one.
Kiyosaki doesn't just want to teach you about money. He wants to revolutionize how you think about it.
He really hammers home this idea of not being average, but honestly, isn't that what most people strive for? A
Yeah.
decent job, some savings. Like, what's so wrong with aiming for average?
You're right. It does sound counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But Kiyosaki argues that average keeps you stuck on a treadmill. You're working for someone else's wealth.
Okay.
He even refused to let Robert, his student, invest with him at first.
Wait, refused? Why? That's kind of harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, because Robert was still thinking like an employee. He was looking for security, those steady returns.
Ah.
That's the average investor mindset, and it rarely leads to breaking into that top 10%.
Okay, that makes sense. And that brings us to this whole 90-10 rule, right? Which is, I mean, it's not just a catchy title, it's like central to his whole philosophy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kiyosaki argues that this wealth distribution has been around forever. Like, think about it. Kings and barons, they had all the power.
Right.
Then it was industrialists. Now it's these tech giants.
Hmm.
Different players, same game.
Right.
The question is, which side of that divide do you want to be on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So how do we break free from that average trap and like start thinking like the top 10%?
It starts with understanding the security trap. You see, clinging to a safe job with a steady paycheck might actually be making you more financially vulnerable in the long run.
Hold on. Are you saying we should all quit our jobs right now and become like venture capitalists?
Not necessarily. It's more about recognizing that true security comes from having your money work for you,
Right.
not you working for your money.
Okay.
And that takes a different mindset, one that Kiyosaki says is essential before you even make any investment.
He's big on the mental game, isn't he? It reminds me of that story about, Robert and his own father. Poor dad. He got that classic advice, get a good job, work hard, and you'll be set. Which seems like good advice.
Right.
Right.
But it often comes from a place of fear.
Oh, interesting.
Fear of risk, fear of failure, fear of stepping outside that comfortable 90%.
Right.
And that fear keeps people stuck in a cycle of working for money instead of building wealth.
So before we even look at stocks or real estate or anything like that, we need to kind of check our mental baggage at the door.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kiyosaki wants you to ask yourself some tough questions. What kind of life do you want? What does financial freedom actually mean to you?
Hmm.
Are you willing to challenge those deep-seated beliefs about money to get there?
Yeah, that's some serious self-reflection.
It is.
And I imagine that's just the tip of the iceberg. It is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Well, you're spot on about the iceberg.
Okay.
It's like we're building a house, right?
Right.
Before you start picking out paint colors,
Sure.
you need a solid foundation. That's where this part of the book comes in, part 2.
Yeah.
Laying the groundwork for becoming, a really savvy investor.
Okay.
And Kiyosaki, he jumps right into the thick of it
Yeah, he does.
with financial statements.
Right.
He even takes those common terms like assets and liabilities,
Right.
like a step further.
Okay.
What I find really interesting is how he dissects the concept of securities.
Okay.
Most people, they think of stocks, bonds as like these automatic assets.
Right. Sure.
But Rich Dad really challenges that. He argues that a security,
Okay.
it's only an asset if it's putting money in your pocket.
Oh.
If it's costing you money,
Right.
it's a liability, even if it's traded on Wall Street.
That's such a good point. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
So that fancy stock portfolio could actually be holding me back.
It's definitely possible, and that's why
Wow.
understanding your cash flow is so crucial. Where's your money going?
Right.
Is it coming back to you with a profit, or is it flowing out to someone else?
Right. It's like he's urging us to take control,
Exactly.
Not just be like, here's my money. Hopefully it makes more money.
Exactly. He doesn't want you to be a passive observer. He wants you to be in the driver's seat.
Right.
And to do that,
Okay.
he outlines these 5 foundational rules for investing.
Ah, yes, the 5 rules. And I feel like these aren't even just about like picking the right investments, right?
No.
It's this whole framework.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the rules, one that really stuck with me, was just the importance of being prepared for anything.
Oh, okay.
Rich Dad, he didn't encourage Robert to try and predict the market.
Right, right.
He wanted him to have a plan for any scenario,
Okay.
for sure.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Can I be honest with you, though?
Yeah.
The thought of tackling these financial statements is still intimidating, even for me.
I get it. I get it. They can seem like this overwhelming jumble of numbers.
Yes.
But Kiyosaki, he does a good job. He breaks it down, and he actually encourages people to think visually about their money,
Okay.
which I appreciate.
Like we're creating a mental map.
Exactly.
Okay.
And remember that whole magic carpet thing that he talks about?
Yes. The magic carpet. I was wondering if we were going to get to that.
Yeah, yeah. And it might sound a little whimsical,
Right.
but it's actually a brilliant way to understand the relationship between your income statement and your balance sheet.
It's all coming back to me now.
Good.
Like they're working together to make my wealth take flight.
Precisely.
Yeah.
The income statement shows you how much money is coming in, how much is going out.
Okay.
The balance sheet shows you what you own, your assets, what you owe, your liabilities.
Okay.
Understanding how those two statements interact, that's like having the magic carpet's controls at your fingertips.
So by understanding that, then we can kind of steer our finances in the right direction.
Exactly.
We're not just along for the ride.
Exactly. And that brings us to a whole other level of thinking, like the 10%, because it's not just about understanding financial statements.
Right.
It's about using that knowledge to actually create assets.
Ooh, okay. Creating assets, not just buying them. That's wild. That's a whole different ball game, isn't it?
It is.
And it gets to the heart of what separates those, that 10% from everyone else.
Yeah.
It's not just being lucky, right? Like inheriting money or something.
Right.
It's this whole approach.
Absolutely. It's a completely different approach to building wealth.
Okay.
Remember that challenge, though, that Rich Dad gave Robert?
Yes.
Find a way to make assets appear on your balance sheet without spending money.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of thinking
Oh.
that makes people millionaires.
Okay.
And it's something anyone can learn.
So it's about using like creativity and strategy,
Yes.
instead of just traditional methods.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things that those sophisticated investors, what do they do differently?
Well, for one, they're not afraid to take calculated risks, They understand the power of leverage.
Right.
They're using other people's money, resources to accelerate their growth. And they're masters of tax law, let me tell you.
Okay.
They use it to their advantage. They don't let it hold them back.
And I feel like this is where that ETC thing comes in, right?
Yes.
Entity, timing, characteristics. He's got a million acronyms.
Right, exactly.
But it sounds simple,
It does.
but it's like this secret code,
It is.
to unlock this whole new level of
Like,
financial control.
It really is. It's about recognizing that you have options. You can choose the right legal structure for your investments. That's entity. Time your moves strategically, timing, and understand how the specific features of a deal can impact your returns. That's characteristics.
So it's thinking several steps ahead,
Yeah.
like chess,
Exactly.
but with money, which is scary.
Right.
And this all ties into part 4, right? When he really dives into building businesses.
Yes.
One of the things he said, though, that really threw me for a loop was the business of your passion is real estate. What does that even mean?
It's about recognizing that real estate is often the underlying asset that's driving the business's success.
Okay.
Think about McDonald's.
Okay.
They're not just selling burgers, right?
Right.
They're
Yeah.
selling prime real estate.
Mm.
They've created this system where their business is generating income
Right.
that allows them to buy more assets. The land, the buildings
Oh, wow.
where those burgers are being sold.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
Like the product is just the tip of the iceberg, and the
Right.
real wealth is like that system underneath.
exactly.
And that's where the BI triangle comes in, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
All the shapes.
All the shakes. Exactly. It's this framework that forces you to look beyond the surface.
Yeah.
To evaluate every aspect of a business, of an investment.
Okay.
Do you have a strong team? Are your legal and financial structures sound? What systems do you have in place for operations, marketing, communication?
It's like a blueprint for building something that's actually going to last
Yes,
and be profitable.
absolutely.
And this actually highlights something that he talks about a lot, which is investing your time,
Yes,
not just your money.
100%. Starting a business, it's not just about writing a check.
Right.
It's about pouring your time, your energy into creating something of real value.
Okay.
That's what attracts investors, that fuels growth, that ultimately leads to lasting wealth.
And that brings us to the end of the book.
We're here already.
Yeah. Where he throws this curveball is the 90-10 rule dead?
Right.
Because the internet has kind of changed everything.
It feels like it has in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like the internet has democratized access to information.
Okay.
It's created this level playing field for entrepreneurship in a lot of ways.
Okay.
You don't need a ton of capital to start a tech company anymore.
Right.
You need a great idea and the hustle to make it happen.
But then there's also this new kind of elite, right? The electronic herd, as he calls them.
It's true.
These fund managers, these tech giants that can move markets with a single decision.
It's a new power dynamic.
Yeah, it is. Where does that leave us? The everyday people who still want to try to build wealth?
Right. Is the 90-10 club still even within reach?
Yeah.
Or are the rules of the game just different now? It's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
Kiyosaki seems to think, though, that the opportunity is greater than ever,
Okay.
but it requires a new way of thinking. He ends the book with this challenge.
Mm.
Are you ready to make things happen?
Mm.
Are you content just to kind of be an observer?
Yeah.
Or are you willing to step up and actually create your own financial future?
That's a really powerful question and a great place to leave it. I feel like we've given people a lot to think about today.
For sure.
If information is the new gold, as Kiyosaki says, how can we use that to our advantage?
That's the question.
How can we build those assets and create lasting wealth? It's something we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely.
Especially in this crazy world that we live in right now.
Absolutely. Things are changing so fast.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so great about this book. It's not just, like a dry how-to manual. It's a call to action. It's a reminder that we all have the power to shape our own financial destinies.
Yeah.
But it takes knowledge, it takes courage, and a willingness to kind of challenge the status quo.
I love that.
Right.
Challenge the status quo. Such a good place to leave it.
Yeah.